All right. Well, here we are. Invite Press launch day. Shane, how you feeling, man? We got another book coming out. We've got this book we did for you last year here, In Search of the Holy, which has been one of my favorite books of yours. And now we have the new Workbook edition, which is coming out. Today is launch day. So congratulations on another title.
Thank you so much. And it's just been a continued joy to be in partnership with Invite Ministries.
Oh my gosh. I'm excited. This is actually, I think, the third. I'm not sure. We're just getting started with this workbook thing. So this is kind of a new deal for us. And let me kind of explain what's different here about this. So, for the last 10 or 15 years, of course, if you have workbooks and you're in a small group in a church, the workbook is considered kind of supplementary. So you would buy a book like this, and then you'd have a workbook with some questions. We've kind of flipped the script, or maybe gone back to the future, if you will, to kind of a model that was more popular a few years ago, where everything is contained in the workbook. So everybody gets their own version of the workbook. You go through it together, and we're just getting started with this model. This is I think the third or fourth title like it that's been out, and we're getting great feedback from folks, Shane, about the ability to kind of go through the material and do it, as a group in a setting from beginning to end together.
Yeah, one of the questions I get asked a lot about my books and the Trail Guide series is how do we use these? If we want to use this not just as something to read, but we want to use it as a small group resource or a Sunday school class curriculum or an all church study, just how do you use these? It seems to me, Lynn, the workbook really answers that question because it's turnkey.
That's right. It's absolutely turnkey. I want to get into it, but first, give us a primer. What is In Search of the Holy about?
Yeah, In Search of the Holy is a book that looks at the Ten Commandments through the vantage point of the gospel. There's a lot of debate these days about how helpful the Old Testament is. I think the Old Testament is incredibly helpful. Jesus said, I didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And a lot of Jesus' teaching refers back to the Old Testament. It's sort of like Moses said this, but I say that. How do we gauge the Ten Commandments and how do we view them in the light of the gospel? And as Christians, not as people who live in the Old Testament under the Old Covenant, but as people who live under the New Covenant, what do the Ten Commandments really have to say to us today? That's where I'm trying to get with In Search of the Holy. And of course, the whole thing is just a quest for holiness in our lives. And I think the Ten Commandments are still really helpful and really useful in that journey.
I love the juxtaposition. Going back to when this book first came out here a few months ago, the juxtaposition of using the Ten Commandments as an entryway into conversations around holiness is fresh. It's not something I had seen prior, and I've gotten some great feedback on it from people who have really found it too useful already. So now I hope this workbook is going to unlock a whole new level for folks. And like you said, it's turnkey. So let's pull it up. I want to show you kind of what this looks like here. So this is the digital file. Of course, you can get this digitally, but print is kind of ideally what we're trying to shoot for here. Somebody has their own print copy. Let's kind of flip ahead here. So here is this. So right up front, we've got these companion teaching videos. So when you buy the book, you can scan that QR code, log on here using this URL, and it will go to a special page we've got now built that's got a bunch of you in it. So got all these short, like 5-minute videos for each week that they can use. I think they're about 5, right? 5 to 8, something like that. You can use to kind of start that session for that day.
Yeah, what I love about this, Lynn, this is a lot of stuff you used to have to buy a kit for, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of that leadership stuff. But this is a study that you as a leader of a group, a Sunday school class or a church, you open up with a video. And then everybody's got a copy of the book and you just dive right in. There's questions. It leads you through the journey. I just love this resource. And I love how it turns a book that I was excited about doing, a book really into curriculum. And who's not looking for great curriculum these days?
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we're trying to do with it, Shane. So, okay, here's session 1. We're called to be a holy people. This is the intro straight out of the book. but notice we go right into this kind of interactive piece. So there's opportunities to get engagement and dialogue in group settings, to kind of work through this, some Q&A opportunities, so people can do this ahead of time, or they may take notes right in the moment, if they're in the group and learning along the way. And then, your notes there about the big 10 commandments. So you see it combines the teaching and the video and the interactivity kind of all in here together. And, we've heard, speaking to your point about curriculum, I've heard this as much as I've heard any other trend in the last 2 to 3 years in church life, as people are dying for great new curriculum. They want to study that's fresh, that's different. They say, gosh, I've gone to this author or that author, gone to that same well a bazillion times, and we like that person, but we're looking for something new and different. So that's kind of what we're trying to respond here, is to take the trade book idea that we had, but then make it completely turnkey, as you said, so that a group without a whole lot of effort on the front end you can just pick it up and kind of walk through the paces together.
Yeah, one of the, I think, powerful things about this, and really about Invite Ministries altogether, is with all of the schisms and all of the things that have happened within the church, the Protestant church, the implosion or explosion of the American mainline. I think a lot of churches are saying, who can I trust? We want to do a book study, but we have grown fairly skeptical about where these things may be leading. And one of the things I love about Invite is it's a publisher you can trust. And as you get to know authors, you can trust. With my stuff, and I've had so much feedback on it. They said, when we read your work, when we read your trail guides, when we read That's Good News or The Ping Life or In Search of the Holy, we know what we're getting. We trust your theology. We trust your sensibilities. And for me, Lynn, in this new world, it's going to be all about not just providing curriculum, but about providing trust.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thanks for saying that. That is absolutely. I mean, we've said from the start, you've heard me say this a million times already, but we're high on Jesus, low on politics. We're serious about discipleship. But that first phrase, high on Jesus, it's all about the Lordship of Christ. And underneath that banner of the majors, then we can have a little variation in how we might think about minor issues, but that lordship piece is the key. And that's what provides that trust for everything that we do. And you're a great representative of that in our line with all the works that we've been doing together, Shane.
Well, and a lot of times you read something, you think, well, what's their agenda? And it's kind of like Easter or Christmas time. I'll get up at our pulpit at Christ Church in Fairview Heights, and I'll say, hey, if you're suspicious of my agenda, let me tell you what's going to happen here. I'm going to share the gospel. I'm going to try to convert you to Christianity. And if you do, I'm going to baptize you and try to make a disciple out of you. So now that's all out in the open. In Search of the Holy, it's all about becoming more godlike. In the Old Testament, holy means you're set apart for a special purpose. We were God's own. And in this context in the New Testament, what does it mean today to be set apart for a special purpose? And what's my hidden agenda? I want to try to help make people more like Jesus.
I love it. Just put it out in the open, right? There's nothing nefarious.
Let's get out there. I am trying to convert you. Yes, I am going to do that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to go back to the document here one more time and kind of point out there's been some. I've had several discussions with people about session length. I'd like to hear your comments or your thoughts about this. So this is a fairly long one. This is 12 weeks or 12 sessions typically, right? That would be like an entire fall or an entire spring. Some people might want to do 6 and 6 or something, or kind of what's been your feeling about how this would work out for groups?
Yeah, one of the things that I do is I write for our church, and then I see if it has wider application. We just finished a huge group, several groups doing this together. So we kind of prototype everything here. And I really like the extended nature of the study. If you fast track a study, you can. We all know that. You can take a 12-week study and make it 6. But one of the things I want to do is engage people in conversation. I want people to be able to share their stories and share their hearts. And I want to be able to put what they're thinking out there. And then let's have some dialogue around that. And then let's be shaped by the material as we move forward, kind of one commandment at a time. So I really would like people to view this kind of as a quarterly kind of study.
Mm.
Maybe, something that's going to take a whole quarter of your year. And if you're a small group leader or a Sunday school teacher for a book study kind of thing, you can get 3 months out of this. And I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be a good 3 months for you.
So if I'm a pastor of discipleship, if I'm looking at kind of a curriculum programming or something like that at a church, really thinking about this as kind of your featured fall study that might take you from Labor Day straight into Advent, or maybe post Lent, post Easter, or maybe depending on if Easter's late, you might start this at the beginning of the year if the calendar works out. So you got some great windows there. Maybe even a summer study.
Absolutely.
Or what about even like a sermon series? Has anyone ever talked to you about doing a Search the Holy as a sermon series to go with?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I get pastors talking to me all the time. One of the things I think is doubly effective, particularly if you're going to do an all church study, we do one all church study a year. And part of that is just getting everybody on the same page. We want to get everybody in our congregation talking about the same thing. And running a parallel sermon series with a book study, I think is the most effective way to really unite a church, get everybody's head in the same space. And then as a leader, you can lead from that commonality.
I love that kind of everybody dialed in together thinking. I think it's the most powerful way you can move a congregation forward together. So it's good stuff. I want to point out too that
a lot of congregations, Lynn, just do ad hoc stuff, right? They'll do this book or that book. This is popular, that's popular. And it kills time, but it doesn't go anywhere. I think that using these materials strategically and preachers preaching forward as you're doing a book study, I think those kind of things are really powerful, not only uniting their congregation, but setting you off in a common direction. And in this case, it's toward the promised land.
Wow. Great word. It's you'd hate to think of content as killing time at a church, but there's definitely a difference between plugging a hole versus actually moving strategically towards something, isn't there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so many, what you don't want to do at church is just de facto have a mission. We're going to all try to stay alive until next Sunday so we can do church again. And then we'll just try it again next week. I think all church book studies help churches go somewhere, and they help pastors become strategic leaders. And I love aligning a sermon series with a book study and then actually moving your people forward. So something like holiness and personal holiness, which is so much a part of our Protestant tradition, I think that kind of movement toward discipleship just sits perfectly post-Easter into summer, fall into Christmas, as you said, just utilizing it strategically. And the more people you can get involved, I think the better off it's going to be, and the more long-term carry you're going to get out of these studies.
One more thing I want to mention is that the original book still has a role here. I've been doing some experimentation as a small group teacher here locally at our church, and I have found when I have a book and a workbook, the classes have been about half and half. Some people want to actually have the workbook and go through everything. Some people prefer like what you call the trade book, this original book here that's just, straight beginning to end read. And because that's how they prefer to engage. So it really, by having multiple options here, we're providing multiple ways to engage with the same content. And I think they both have a place here, in terms of how people like to get in with the content. Also want to mention that on our website, we've got bulk discounts. So the workbooks are only available at inviteministries.org, because what we're trying to do there is to set that up as a bulk discount option. So the more a church buys, then the deeper that discount gets, which of course you can't have on Amazon or any other books retailer that way. So the workbook available at inviteministries.org. And of course, the original book is available wherever books are sold globally. So that's kind of how that works.
Yeah, well, Lynn, one of the things I love about the workbook is no matter who you are or how many are in your group, you're a leader if you have a workbook. If you're using this as personal devotion, you're the leader if you got the workbook. The path is clear. You can do it on your own television or your own computer screen with the videos. If you're doing it as a couple, as a very small group, just putting this, I think, in people's hands equips leaders. And we all know the first person you got to lead yourself. And so I think that this is a really effective tool. I'm glad to see Invite doing some things to create some new models where not only can you read a book, but you're actually encouraged to mark it up and write in it.
That's excellent. All right, Shane. Well, this is good. Appreciate your 15 minutes here as we talk about the launch of In Search of the Holy Workbook Edition.
I am absolutely thrilled to be a part of the Invite Ministries team. I love this book. It's a swashbuckling adventure. The people who have read it love it. There's a lot of energy in this book, and I hope that you, your church, your small group, your Sunday school class are truly impacted by In Search of the Holy.
Now available at inviteministries.org.